We'll give it a couple more minutes to people to show up. We've only got about 22 in attendance. All righty, it's 10:02, so we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. First order of business will be to look at the regular meeting minutes from February 10th. If you've had a chance to look those over, do you see any corrections or additions that need to be made to those?
I move to accept the meeting minutes from the February
February 10th.
membership meeting.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Kate. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Colleen Knight seconds. So any other discussion? If not, we're ready for a vote. All in favor of accepting the minutes of the February 10th meeting, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All righty. Next item of business is the executive committee report. First item under that is we are scheduled for the version 3.8 upgrade on Wednesday, April 20th. They will do that. I don't think we have any libraries open after 8 p.m. Central Time. They will start the upgrade at that point. Upgrade itself is pretty quick, under an hour, and anything that has to take place should be ready to go by the time we open on that Thursday morning, the following day. Are there any questions or concerns about the upgrade? All right, we'll keep this rolling right along. New member updates. We do have a signed MOU from Mississippi County, which is down here in Southeast Missouri. They are tentatively scheduled for spring 2023. We had discussed that Hannibal Library was considering joining. That decision has been put on hold for probably at least a year. And we have not heard anything further from Morgan County. That was supposed to go before their board. And we've not heard yes or no from them. Any other information about potential new members or the ones that I've talked about?
Ron, this is Steve Campbell.
Yes.
I'm trying to find my email to Shannon and Mickey. I think Morgan County's meeting is tonight, I think, or it was the 11th. I don't know. I think it was tonight. I just talked to Stacy Ember yesterday. I'm trying to find it because I know that not Bowling Green, there's another library that's supposed to be bringing it to their board on the 11th. Mickey, do you remember the email I sent you guys? There were two libraries like right around now that we're going to be bringing it to their boards. It was Morgan County and it was, oh shoot. I don't know. I'll have to look. I'm sorry. I don't have it in front of me. I didn't know it was going to pop up like this. I'll keep on looking. Sorry, I apologize if Mickey couldn't remember. I'm just trying to find it in the email I sent to the two of them.
And I don't see anything about it in the last meeting minutes, because I know we discussed it. I just don't see anything.
Yeah,
about
no,
it.
this was an email I
Steve,
sent them both
Steve,
since that
it
meeting.
was Bonterre.
Bonterre, that's right. I was nothing Bowling Green. Yeah, and to say in that email, one of them had a meeting on the 11th, one
Yeah.
had it on the 14th. I can't remember which
Correct.
was which.
Morgan County on the 14th, Bonterre on the 11th.
Okay, so Stacy's is tonight, and then I haven't heard from Bonterre, but we should be hearing from them. I can reach out to them maybe, and I can't remember who the director even is, to be honest with you. I'll try to reach out and see if I can get an update on that.
Okay, that sounds good. Next on the agenda, with the executive committee report, MoreNet membership. The executive committee did approve joining MoreNet as a nonprofit member, which is going to cost us $950 a year. There was just a strong feeling that if we were going to be a player in Missouri libraries, that we need to be a paying player, to be carrying our weight, to have that standing among Missouri library organizations. There's a note on here about the Missouri Evergreen Zoom accounts. So I'm assuming with us being a MoreNet member now, we could get the Zoom accounts through them and not have to use individual ones anymore.
Yes, that's correct. And all of the main committees and the president, the board president, have been assigned licensed Zoom accounts. If you are interested in that, we have a few more available to us. So if you are in the leadership of Missouri Evergreen, or you feel that your responsibilities require you to have a Zoom platform license, we can arrange that. So please let me know and we'll handle it.
Okay. Next item is something that really came up after our last executive board meeting. We're starting to experience some barcoding collisions and probably really need to revisit our barcoding policy. Mickey, I think that was something that was brought to your attention. So if you'd want to address that.
Thank you, Ron. I appreciate it. This is something that surfaced pretty early on in my tenure, and it's been a persistent issue that I think we're going to need to look into more carefully as a consortium. As many of you know, over 10 years of bringing libraries into the consortium, there hasn't been a consistent policy of how to scheme our barcodes so that item and patron barcodes are in danger of collision. Our catalog has to have unique barcodes for every item and every patron. In other words, you can't have the same barcode at different libraries because we all share the same catalog platform. So that wasn't so much a problem when we had 3 libraries or even 10 libraries, but we're getting up to 60 now. And what's happened is some of the retrospective libraries that we're looking at from the past that came into Missouri Evergreen came in with 4, 5, 6, 7-digit barcodes. The only sure way to avoid collisions moving forward is to have a schema so that we know, a published schema on our website probably, and maybe elsewhere, where we know what the assigned ranges are going to be for barcodes for libraries coming in. So for example, Rawls County, our newest library, they were assigned a schema for their patron barcodes and their item barcodes. We know exactly what that is, and that's the schema that Brian's going to be following as he continues to add items and patrons. Now, it's easy enough moving forward to set that kind of policy. It doesn't really affect too many people. What we're looking at now is a retrospective issue, though, where the libraries that are currently in the catalog with item and patron barcode numbers that are less than 13 or 14 digits are colliding with other members who are adding new patrons or new items using the shorter barcodes. I think that what's going to happen at some point, and this is certainly not an emergency situation by any means, so I don't think anyone needs to be alarmed, but I think what we're going to have to start doing is making sure that all libraries follow a 13 or 14 digit barcode schema, and that any subsequent additions to our catalog, whether patrons or items, need to be in this format. And then retrospectively, they may be able to update their barcodes in their collections and in their patron records over time so that they are in congruence with our policy. We don't even have a policy yet, and that's really one of the issues we're going to have to be wrestling with probably in the next several months. But I wanted everyone to be clear about why we're doing it and what's important about it. As we grow in the consortium, we need to be able to have that kind of consistency so we don't have barcode collisions, because we can't have items and we can't have patrons having the same barcode in our catalog. If you have any questions about that, I'm happy to talk to you about it. I'm already working with Equinox to identify the various barcodes in use at each library. It's going to be a long-term project as we analyze that data, and the board and executive committee works with me to make some recommendations to members about how best to go forward.
Mickey, can I ask a question?
Please.
If we're going to have a 13 or 14 digit rule moving forward and there are no collisions now, what would be the benefit of doing a retrospective change?
Oh, there are collisions now. We just encountered this
Oh.
at Carrollton, for example, Diane. This is what came up. We had Carrollton who was adding patrons and said, "Hey, what's going on? I'm putting my number in for the patron," because they have a sheet, an Excel sheet that just lists numbers of barcodes for patrons, and the number wasn't sticking. After a little investigation with Sarah, we found out that, well, those are duplicate numbers. That's why they weren't sticking, because those were actual collisions that were occurring.
Oh, okay.
I
Okay,
have a
thank you.
feeling that's the tip of the iceberg. I think that Carrollton sort of sounded the alarm on that early, and we're going to have to take a hard look at things.
And we've
Okay.
had collisions at Jefferson County Library on the patron side. I think it was Riverside has the same structure as we do, almost identical.
Good
With
to
it
know.
in our patrons that had cards in hand, but we had kicked them out of the system for being expired, came in with their cards in hand. We scanned them and it pulls up a Riverside patron because it didn't collide.
Yeah, yeah.
I had asked about this years ago because I was concerned because we were ordering thousands of barcodes in a big batch, and I, didn't want to waste a bunch of patron cards. And this was under Mobius, and they had a range for each of us, I believe, at that time, but I don't think it was published anywhere because we had our big range that was for us. So I don't know if there is a list out there somewhere that already has all of the early ones with Mobius.
Thanks, Terry. That's great information.
And I think what we found is that the Evergreen libraries that migrated from Atrium, I think Shannon said, are really the ones experiencing this the worst. Because Atrium had a very set format for patron and material barcodes they had for every one of their libraries. So yeah, I think that is one of those things that Mobius always took care of for us, and that unless we told them to make an exception, and we're just now figuring that out. Next item is bylaws revision. We talked about making a revision to the bylaws to kind of reword duties of officers. This hasn't been changed since 2019. So the board did approve those changes to the bylaws. You should have received a copy of those. I believe what we're going to do is introduce those at this meeting and then vote on them in June, if that sounds acceptable to everybody. And the major change you'll really see is under the officers. We're changing from our current setup to having a president-elect, an immediate vice president, treasurer, recording secretary, and 4 members at large. And then under 4.4, the duties of those offices are listed out. We've added sections on hired staff. So are there any immediate questions on the bylaw revisions on Article 4 Executive Board?
If I could just add something, Ron, to what you had just said, I think one of the principal drivers behind this change was to give our leadership a little continuity. So instead of the president's office sort of disappearing after a year of service, we're asking the individual who takes that position as president-elect, vice president, to stay in that leadership position for basically 3 years. So the person who takes the position of vice president will be in that position for 1 year, will move into the presidency the next year, and will remain in leadership as the immediate past president in their 3rd year of service. So that provides a kind of legacy or continuity that I think our organization has lacked. And the intent in the change of the bylaws is to provide that kind of legacy continuity. So we have someone there in a leadership position who is experienced enough to make wise decisions for us. Thanks, Ron.
And I think we've been doing this a little informally. I think Colleen Knight will say that we have used her as an immediate past president to advise
Yeah,
us.
I was just going to say that, Ron. I mean, this is not going to change anything. I think this has been happening already. It's just formalizing, I guess, is what it's doing. So
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, because Shannon and I have a lot of meetings and still do occasionally on the turnover. And so I'm sure she's going to have meetings with whoever's president after that. So really all it's doing is putting it more formally in place.
Is there any further discussion on the proposed bylaw change? And as I said, we'll let that simmer with everybody until the June meeting and vote on it at that point. Next on the agenda is the RFP for our ILS and financial services. Kristen Evans was here. She's excused herself while we have this discussion, and I will let her know when we're done so she can come back to give her report. Mickey has been responsible for writing up these RFPs, so I'll ask him to speak about those.
Thanks, Ron. The RFP came out in the packet for our new support services vendor. I shouldn't say new, for a support services vendor in the next 3 years. We've been under and working with our vendor partner Equinox for the past 3 years, pretty successfully, it seems. The state library has told us that it is time to put the bid out again so that other vendors may have an opportunity to bid on support services for Missouri Evergreen. Equinox will be invited to respond to this request for quote, as will at least 2 other organizations. One is Emerald and one is PTFS Liblime. So those 3 organizations, support organizations for Evergreen will be invited to bid, and I will continue my work today to see if we can find at least one other potential respondent to this. But once that goes out tomorrow, it's a fairly routine schedule of evaluation and deciding whether or not we're going to either continue with Equinox or choose a new vendor to support our platform. At this point, we'll see what happens. I think that we're going to be looking at all aspects of the support function, including the cost of support, the level and quality of support, the reputation of the individuals involved in organizations that will support us. And if you have any thoughts on that matter as members, if you feel like you've received good service from Equinox, for example, or you haven't, now would be a good time to share that with the board and let people know your thoughts on the support services that we've had over the past 3 years. That's one RFP. The second RFQ is going out to accounting services. The board felt that the complexity of financial services that we have here from Missouri Evergreen is not high. We don't have a lot of need for in-depth financial services, and our thought was to see if we could simplify our contracts so that we can find a low-cost vendor to support our accounting and financial service needs. So the board has requested that we create an RFQ for accounting services, basically. That will go out after our treasurer, Sue, Lightfoot and I work that out and get that out in the next several weeks. So we will be seeking new financial services support, and we will be seeking new Evergreen catalog support in the coming weeks. Thanks, Ron.
So Mickey, for the RFQ for the accounting services, would you be interested in hearing from member libraries if they have a firm they work with that provides those services that they think could handle that? Would you be interested in having names for those?
Thank you. Yes, very much. We do know that there are folks out there that would be able to work with us as our accountants and financial services provider. And I would love to hear from member libraries who are really happy with their accounting services or people they've worked with in the past. Yes, thank you, Ron. That's a great idea. I'd love to hear from people, and we'll put them on our vendor list for sure.
Okay. And one thing I noticed on the ILS RFP, are we interested in contacting Mobius or working with them again? I know they weren't on the list. I didn't know if there was something behind that or not.
No, in fact, I think that's one of the things that came up in discussions with Shannon, and I'll look to the board for direction on that. I certainly see no reason not to include Mobius in that RFQ, and I certainly am in favor of that. I think I'll take my direction from the board as a whole.
Okay. I kind of think that with them being a Missouri company and having worked with us before, I don't know that they will come in as the low bidder necessarily, but I think it would be good form to at least have them included.
Okay.
I'm one voice, but that's just my opinion. Are there others?
I agree with you, Ron.
I agree.
I was going to mention it if you didn't, Ron.
I mean, I'll just go back to what Robin said after the last time we, and Colleen can really confirm all this if I'm saying anything inaccurate. But I think most of us were fairly satisfied with Mobius when we had them, and they did a lot for us that a lot of things we don't probably get from Equinox, which this is no blame of Equinox's. This is just, they were doing a lot of things for us, I guess, free, I guess you could say. And when we did the RFQ, we received, I think they were $80,000 more than what the low bid was. At the time, Robin said that after the fact, I guess we didn't really realize this at the time, we assumed we had to take the low bid. But at the time, she had said, well, you guys could have made the argument that, you wanted to stay with Mobius, even though it was going to cost more money, and that would have been allowable. The state library would have considered that, proposal, even though it wasn't the low bid. I guess we weren't really aware of that at the time, but we did become aware of there were many things that Mobius were doing for us free. And then once they had to actually bid it out again, when we were separated from them, they had to bid again. We realized that, yeah, Equinox was less expensive, but if we want to have this or this done, they're going to charge us now for it. Whereas Mobius is doing it for free initially. And then of course, when they bid, they realized they weren't doing it for free anymore. And I think what the result of that has been is, as we've all seen since then, is that we're still paying for it. We've had to hire people to do things for us that Mobius was doing for us, or we've had to contract out for things that were being done before. So I'm not saying I want to go back to Mobius, but I think we should be aware that we don't have to necessarily take the lowest bid on this if Equinox isn't the lowest bid, or if we decide that there are services that we are not getting or that Equinox is not willing to provide that we want, because another vendor is willing to offer those for more money. I think that's something we should look at more carefully this time and realize that we don't have to just take the lowest bid, because the lowest bid sometimes is, as we all know, working in the public sector, it's not always the best bid. It's just the cheapest bid. Right. And you kind of get what you pay for too sometimes.
Yeah, I agree with Steve. Some of the extra stuff that we have paid for with Equinox that Mobius probably would have just done for us, we would probably be close to making up that $80,000 difference.
Easily.
Another thing is I noticed in the RFP that training was included, and we've been talking in the last year about the consortium members doing their own training because we weren't real happy with the Equinox training. It wasn't specific enough. And now we have the cataloging committee and Greg have been working so hard on training new staff and well, training existing staff that we may not even want our host to be providing training anymore. I can see why you want to include it in the RFP right now, but that's a service that we may not be using in the future. So that might.
Yeah, I agree with that totally too. I think that I feel like the decision was, I felt like there was a consensus that we could provide our own training better. than what
Even for
we were
migrating
getting.
libraries? Is that, you guys are
Yeah.
including okay.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, yeah, I would say with that, yeah.
Yes. The mapping and all
And
that.
that's not Diane and I's opinion. I feel like that's what we've kind of heard from everyone. I don't think that's just us speaking on that. I would hope not, at least.
Steve, you haven't been involved in the last two immediate migrations we've had with Reynolds County or Rawls County, and I would differ with you on that regard. I think I have been involved with those, and I have seen some different things. I think there are certain aspects of the training function that require expertise that members simply don't have time to provide. We've been really lucky. I don't know if Rachel's in the meeting or not. She was our sort of the buddy library for our incoming folks, and they did a spectacular job, no question about it. I'm not sure that we can, moving forward, ask that of our libraries. It's a huge staff commitment. It's a huge time commitment. It's a huge resource commitment.
Well, Mickey, what I'll respond to that is that when before we began the buddy system and we had Equinox doing the migrations exclusively, we had what happened with Carrie Klein down in Neosho, which was a total disaster and probably prevented us from getting Joplin to join us. So I don't think we want to go back to that. That's for sure. If we have to rely on Equinox solely, that's going to be a problem because that did not go well, I'll say.
I think moving forward, we want to improve our training, no doubt about it. I think we can do better. I don't think we want to go back to anything. I think we want to move ahead to better and better training.
Sure. I would. I think everyone would. Philosophically, everyone would agree with that. Yes, but in practice, what would that actually involve? I think. I think that no one would be opposed to having Equinox involved in the process for sure. But I think that the migrations we've proven that they go a lot more smoothly when we have member libraries involved in them.
That's true.
I mean, without a doubt. I mean, it's a night and day difference.
This is
Yeah,
Rebecca
and
from
there's a
the
role for
Rolla
that.
Public Library, and we recently migrated and had a fantastic experience, just giving my opinion with Equinox. We started resource sharing in September, and the whole staff, we all had a really good experience with Equinox, just my 2 cents.
Who was your partner library? Who was your buddy library, as we called it, I guess?
Lebanon, Laclede, and we didn't really have a lot of input from them, so most of it was Equinox.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, that is news to me because the last we talked, like the onboarding committee and talking with the executive board, we've got to move away from having Equinox do the training and do it ourselves.
That's always what I heard.
I don't think that's the consensus now based on my discussions with other member libraries. I think we all need to open our minds a little bit to, what the changes that have occurred since Neosho came aboard. And I know that was a problematic migration, but I think that the recent experiences have proven that, we're in a different place than we were.
I also think there's the point to consider that it's the same set of libraries that are these buddies to these migrating libraries over and over and over. And it's such a strain to get, it's becoming, unfair and all of that jazz. I wish that Equinox offered better training, but so we have to find some middle ground somewhere, somehow.
I agree with Kate on the middle ground thing.
Good. Well, the RFQ is intended to actually open that conversation, not close it. So I think your points are all well taken. And whatever vendor we interview and talk to, whether it's Equinox or anyone else or any number of vendors, we certainly will have that discussion about training and quality of training. And I think it's important to all the members. And, we're hearing from people about different points of view. And I think we need to bring those views together and share them with a potential vendor partner.
Any further discussion or question on the RFPs for the ILS and financial services?
The question in the chat about how long Equinox has been in the mix.
Oh, and yeah, Kate answered that we've had Equinox for 3 years. Yeah, so this
Thank
We
you.
have to bid out every 3 years for the state library. Is that correct,
we're
Mickey?
using public money, yes.
Yeah.
And I think it's just smart too, because you get that complacency on both sides that really can be kind of deadly sometimes. I know there are some things I'd like to bid out at my library that I don't dare touch, but. Okay, moving along, next, we're still on the executive committee report. The MPLD conference and Missouri Evergreen representation there. We are having a meeting from 9 to 10 a.m. on Thursday, June 2nd. I believe that's just kind of an informational for maybe people who are interested in attending. That will not be the regular full membership meeting, I don't believe. We just discussed that there were too many moving parts with getting people logged in remotely to have a good discussion and good representation, that we would just have our regular meeting the following Thursday, June 9th. We are also planning Friday afternoon at the close of the MPLD conference of just kind of having a social hour get together for people to maybe come grab some pizza before they leave. The Missouri Evergreen directors just stand around, maybe chat for 15 minutes or so, kind of put some names to faces. That's one of the things in our long-term plan, is to kind of connect the libraries in more ways than just remotely or through the ILS, but do some more social get-togethers, more face-to-face meetings to kind of build a little bit of that community. Also, Shannon wanted me to point out there's an Evergreen meeting calendar. If you go to the moevergreenlibraries.org website and go to the member resources tab, there is a meeting calendar there that is relatively new, and you can, it's on the current month, but you can click on the date and it will have the live link to attend the meeting. I mean, I'm looking at April right now, and I can click the circulation committee meeting on the 26th, and there's the Zoom link to connect to that. So anytime if you're in doubt about when a meeting is scheduled, what the connection information is, it's going to be all on that calendar. And that is something that's new. And last item on the executive committee report is, as I mentioned, our next full membership meeting will be at 10 a.m. on Thursday, June the 9th. And Shannon will send out connection information for that as the time comes. Mickey, the executive director report.
Yeah, my intent was to open my time for a few minutes to our vendor partner, Andrea Nyman, and let me see if she's in our meeting now. I asked her, and the board asked her to sit in on the meeting if she's available, and just introduce herself to members and tell about what her role is at Equinox and what her role is in serving the members of Missouri Evergreen. So let me see if Andrea is in the meeting. Andrea, you here? Just asked her to pop in, so let me see if we can give her a second or so. The other thing I wanted to mention was that we did have our first new directors orientation session. It was fun, enjoyed it. I enjoyed the participation, and I hope it was of use to the members who attended. Our second one is going to be April 28th. There is an invitation out to directors for that, and we will plan 2 more, one in May and one in June. The May one will be in an afternoon. we've heard from members saying, hey, my mornings are tied up. So we will have an afternoon session and we'll have one other one in June. And I haven't decided yet whether that'll be morning or afternoon, but I will see what membership has to say. The intent of those 1 hour meetings that we're having online is to provide newer staff, newer directors, newer libraries with kind of an overview of what Missouri Evergreen is, what its goals are, a little bit about its history, and to highlight the resources that are available either through our website, through our vendor partner, or through our YouTube videos. We also have this new cataloging certification program in place now. So we're doing some wonderful things. And I think part of our energy in the next couple of months is to try and get all those good things out to membership and to introduce them to all the resources and support they have from Missouri Evergreen. So I'm delighted that we're able to offer these sessions, and I'm delighted that the response has been so good. Again, directors are getting the invitations through Zoom, but if you want to send another member of staff, you're very much welcome to do so. I think it's a good idea. The more folks are familiar with Evergreen, the better. Let me see if Andrea's here yet. Andrea, are you here? She was in another meeting and wrote me and said that she would have to get out of that to come over. But it looks like she might be available at the top of the hour. But it looks to me like we're going to have to skip that, Ron. I'm sorry. We didn't quite get our arrangements in order in time for that. So I'll end here with my report.
Well, if she comes in, we could probably just jump back to her. I think we're moving at a pretty good pace. That we
Okay, Ron, thanks. I'll let her know that. Thank you.
Financial report, Sue Lightfoot is unable to attend this morning. You did receive the balance sheets, should have received all the financials emailed to you. As of the end of March, we are showing maybe a negative net income, but that's okay. We still have dues coming in that we will be okay. I'm sure we have another grant payment coming in. Is that correct, Mickey? Yeah, we got our April report that needs to go along with the request for payment. So yes, that's correct. Okay. So we seem to be in good financial situation. If anybody has any questions on the financials, Kristen from Amigos is here and maybe can answer them either now or in her report later on. Okay, seeing no questions, we'll move along to committee reports. Cataloging committee, I'm going to ask Greg to take that on. Nate is ill today, and the next couple of weeks are Greg's time to shine anyway, so I'll let him discuss what's going on.
Morning all, it's nice to see that everybody is here. The cataloging certifications are coming along quite nicely. We currently have 31 libraries that have completed a basic certification, and an additional 13 libraries have gotten through the advanced certification, which is really, really nice. We have approximately 6 trainings that are scheduled in the next 3 months. I'm going to put those dates in the chat box so people know when and where they are. We're currently taking signups for those. I do want to encourage people that if they feel like they need an additional bit of training, to go ahead and sign up for them. These are not required. They're only for people that feel like they need a little bit of help. Additionally, if you've got cataloging staff that have already completed either the basic or the advanced, well, at least the basic, they probably don't need to attend this. And if they've gotten both, they really don't need to attend this either. This is primarily for people who need a little bit more hands-on. I'll have live demonstrations for them to do. We'll do some merging, we'll do some record creating. Oregon County, which is where I did my first training, I thought went really, really well. They were kind of our test guinea pig for this kind of thing. We didn't spend a whole lot of time on the basics because they all felt like they had that down, which is really just adding holdings and modifying holdings and deleting holdings. We had a few questions on monograph parts because that tends to be confusing. But most of the 8 hours, and it was a solid 8 hours, was spent on creating records, deleting records, and modifying and overlaying records. So that's really the crux of the training there. We had about 13 people, I want to think 10 to 13 people that were there for training at Oregon County. And because I'm only one person, that seemed to work really, really well in terms of everybody getting the attention they needed and keeping everything flowing. So I don't know if some of the other places that we have listed now are going to have more or less. I haven't been told that, but I'm looking forward to getting out and meeting everybody. And again, if anybody has any questions about this certification, please email me. Let me know what your questions are. Let me know what your anxiety level is, and I'll see if I can bring that down a little bit. Again, I essentially teach the test, so there's really nothing to be stressed about. That's really, I guess, all that I have.
I'd like to add a little something to that as well. Even if, as long as the regional trainings aren't chock full, if we don't have an overflow of people, if you want to come and meet other catalogers, you're probably going to learn one or two things that you didn't know before, even if you think you know everything. I have made it through the basic training. Everybody has taken this training, even the committee people. So it was great just as a refresher. So I think it'd be great, as long as we're not inundated with people that really need it, if you wanted to come and meet your fellow catalogers and listen in, maybe you'll pick up a thing or two.
Exactly. I do have one other thing. I'm in the process right now of actually updating the basic course to incorporate all the changes that 3.8 is bringing out, which seem like they weren't very many, but when you get down to the training and how I created the course, it's significant. So in addition to that, I'm going to re-recording probably 3 or 4 of the videos that already go with this course. If you've got people that are doing their certification now, kind of indicate to them that if they get their basics done maybe in the next 2 weeks, that would really, really be good, because I'm thinking maybe starting May 1st, we'll have to start teaching all of this new material. And it's not significantly different in terms of what we're doing right now, but in terms of explaining it and recording it, it's different enough that I'm having to invest some good time into it. And that's all I got.
Okay. One other thing you'll see listed on the agenda, we do have a cataloging help desk email. We decided to come up with that. A lot of times we as cataloging committee members were getting individuals contacting us directly, and that's great. A lot of people that I helped out when I was chair of the committee come back time and time again to me, and that's fine. But every once in a while I will be out of the office and somebody's question is going to be left hanging there, and they're going to feel like, nobody's answering me. So we started that cat help email, cathelp@moevergreenlibraries.org. And what that does is that goes to Greg and all members of the committee, and whichever one of us has the free time, has the knowledge, has the free time and the knowledge, can just jump in and answer that, so we don't leave a cataloger hanging, especially if they're like, I'm holding on to this book until I hear from you, so we can get back to them more quickly. And we are seeing use of that address, and I think it is helping people get answers more quickly. Greg touched on the certifications that he's received. We've jumped quite a bit just from the last time he reported on April 4th. So I think libraries are finding this isn't anything to be scared about. There wasn't an intent to have a gotcha moment. We just need to make sure that everybody has the same basic level of skills, and that was the intent that was designed with. And the next meeting of the cataloging committee will be at 11 a.m. on Monday, May the 9th. And that is pretty much all we have from cataloging at this time. So circulation committee report from Meredith McCarthy.
Hello, good morning, everyone. I was going to do a couple little housekeeping items at the beginning, and then I'll throw it to Diane because she took point on the agenda item that we have on there. On the housekeeping front, one of the things that is on our agenda is creating a in the moment cheat sheet for the offline CERC. So if any library out there does have one already that is quick and in the moment to be useful, I'm going to put my email in the chat to shoot to me. Otherwise, we will condense off of the Equinox materials that we already have in hand. But I figured I'd just throw that out there in case somebody out there does it. And just to put on the board's radar and everything else, that I've had some other commitments pop up that are going to pull some of my energy. So I'm going to be looking to step down from this role at the end of June. I am trying to solicit some other members of the committee to take that role, but I haven't gotten any confirmation there yet. But if the board has people that they think are a good candidate for it, please start putting those feelers out. And so I will throw it to Diane for our agenda item.
You know, we polled the membership to find out which patron permission groups they were using and which was being used actually to confer permissions to patrons as opposed to just use them for statistics. And of that list of 19, there was only one that was not actually being used by a library somewhere to give patrons permissions to do different things. And that one permission is county students. So we would like to remove county students from that list of 19 to bring the list down to 18. And another library wanted us to add institution so that they could give particular permissions to businesses and groups like that. So that's what we're recommending. A little bit of backstory to that, that 19 permissions was just overwhelming to us, overwhelming to the frontline staff when they're registering a patron and they have these 19 permissions that they need to choose from. So lo and behold, we are able to limit what our staff sees. And I sent instructions out about how to do that a month ago, and I would be glad to send them out again. So here at Scenic, I limited what Scenic staff can see to the 3 patron permission groups that we actually use: patrons, probationary patrons, and internet only. So when Scenic staff are registering a patron, they don't see 19 options. And you can also see, you know, all the system administrator and all the behind the scenes permissions. So it's way more than 19. All that our staff now see is 3 options. So it's very difficult to make a wrong choice for them. So all the permissions that are in there are not really as important as it used to be. However, we can get rid of one. So the committee is recommending that we get rid of county students and that we add a permission group for institution. That is our recommendation.
Okay. Seeing that that is a recommendation from a committee, it does not require a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or questions on the recommendation of the circulation committee?
Diane, I'm sure this is in your instructions, but is that per workstation or can you just set it for your library? What's the level there?
You can set it for your whole system. You could set it by branch.
Okay.
Either way you want to.
Any further questions before we take a vote? All right, if there are no further questions, we'll entertain a vote on the circulation committee's recommendation to remove county students as a patron permission group and add institution. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All righty.
Thank you.
As and the next meeting of the circulation committee will be at 11 a.m. on Tuesday, April 26th. Next on the agenda is the reports committee. Tony Miller.
Good morning. I'm new to the reports committee as the chair. So recently we had just been waiting, hoping for simple reports to come on with the 3.8 Sadly, it is not going to come on with 3.8. It's going to be a year out before we see simple reports. We're going to try to re-identify some things that might need guides or extra training materials. We've got some wonderful training materials on the website already. Going to look and see what we haven't covered so far, and see what else we can do in the way of providing training that people may be interested in for reports. That's about all I have to provide for reports.
Mickey, I think that since we, backed this this vendor, the simple reports, I'm wondering if we can get it. I know it's coming at 3.9, but I'm wondering if we can get it implemented here at Missouri Evergreen before we actually upgrade to 3.9, just that module.
That's a good question. I know Shannon had that conversation with Galen and with Andrea earlier several weeks ago. As a matter of fact, there were a couple of things standing in the way of that. I'll have to get the details from Shannon about it, but no, we definitely explored that possibility. There's some awkwardness having to do with how that module fits in with the rest of the Evergreen catalog programming. So I think that was the thing I recall. But once we get that conversation up again, that question up in front of Shannon and Andrea, maybe we can get an answer. But I appreciate you want that sooner rather than later. And I think that's been, Shannon's big disappointment was that we weren't able to get it included in 3.8. I don't know for sure, but I think there was some discussion of seeing if we could bring it in possibly as a module, as you said, towards the fall. So I don't think that conversation's dead. I think that there were some obstacles, that's all.
I know recently there was Feedback Fest and all of that stuff, and Simple Reporter was made available to the Evergreen, international Evergreen community at large. So it's being, tested and it's being played around with more than just, those of us that were working with it more behind the scenes. So I feel like it will be ready and with good bugs worked out and stuff like that before, we upgrade to 3.9. So
well, as our newly elected Evergreen community board member, we applaud you. Congratulations on your election, Kate. And that might be an opportunity to ask around a little bit and see if anyone has done what we'd like to do, which is to get that module into 3.8 as opposed to waiting till 3.9. And if anyone's done that, maybe they can help us accomplish the same task. That's great. I love it.
Just leave it with you. We cannot use it. So okay. I've restarted it twice now. So
next on the agenda, I saw Leanne pop up there for a minute, reporting on onboarding.
Morning, everyone. Yes, we just had our scheduled meeting last week, and we had a lot of people that were unable to attend. So yeah, it ended up being a good conversation between Mickey and I, actually. So we had a good discussion on, kind of where we want to see the onboarding committee go. And we are looking at adding some more active members, knowing that a lot of our current members are taking on other duties and have a lot more going on. So if there's anyone out there among the membership who would like to be on the committee, then feel free to contact me or even Mickey, and we will see about adding you on the board. We'd love to have as many active people on the committee as we can. And other than that, just the upcoming libraries that we will be migrating. We've got Barton County in November, December of this year, Mississippi County in spring of 23, and St. Joseph in summer of 23. And then we will have our next meeting at 10 a.m. on July 7th, a Thursday. So again, if anyone wants to attend or join the committee, just please contact me. And I can put my email in the chat if anyone wants to contact me through email that way then. Other than that, I think that's it.
Right off the top of your head, Leanne, probably Mickey as well, how many potential migrations do we have left in this fiscal year? How many slots?
I believe for this year, it's been filled. I'm not sure on 23, Mickey. Do you know?
Well, when you say fiscal year, are you talking about the state library's fiscal year or Missouri Evergreen's fiscal year?
The grants fiscal.
Yeah. So the migration grants are run by the state library. And so I would say we've got one more under this grant year.
Yeah, so we migrated Rolla in September, then Cedar County, Reynolds County, and Rawls County. So yeah, that would be 4 out of our 5.
Yeah. Well, we don't have any set number that we have to migrate. I think that's sort of an old school thing that is kind of carried over in some people's minds that we have to have this. We're in no danger of losing state support in any way if we don't migrate 5 libraries. That seemed to be sort of the number that we've been doing, certainly because members want to join, and we have those folks waiting in queue, but we're not obligated by state library or anyone else to migrate 5 libraries a year.
And really at this point, we're talking about the migration process becoming more of almost a year process, depending on the condition of the library's catalog, their level of automation and all that already. So really, we almost would not have time to get another library migrated before the end of this fiscal year.
Right.
Yeah. And I agree with Mickey. It's not the end of the world. We have the capacity for 5, but we do not have, thou shalt migrate 5 library mandate from the state library.
Right.
And a lot of the oncoming libraries have contracts with their current vendors. So, we have to kind of go merge their timeline as well.
Right, and that's tricky.
It is.
Next item for committee reports is reciprocal borrowing. I don't think Jeff is here today, but there was another draft of a reciprocal circulating policy that was sent out with the meeting documents. And I got more paper than I know what to do with here, so. Looks like this. Again, the reciprocal borrowing agreement, the draft of it's presented. I think when I looked at the file, it was like draft number 4. But
we're on draft 5 now.
Draft 5. All righty, Jake spoke up. He gets to talk about the reciprocal borrowing agreement.
Okay, let me pull it up really quick. Or maybe we are on 4. I don't know. We've got a lot of these things here. Okay, maybe it is 4. Okay, so Jeff has been very good at getting everything done, and I know Mickey and I think Steve have been helping get all this ready. Basically, it's just short and sweet. The biggest thing is the lost and damaged items are billed in accordance with the policies of the lending library and the Missouri Evergreen Damaged Items Best Practices Guidelines. Both libraries have to agree for the reciprocal borrowing agreement, for us to be able to take their patrons and vice versa. So I think this will kind of hopefully solve all of the problems that we had with the reciprocal agreement. You know, and it's kind of short, sweet, and hopefully takes care of everything.
I have a question. This is Terry.
Yes.
We have not done the reciprocal borrowing, but we have Lebanon right next door to us. And right now we have a patron who has a card at both. And when I read this, I'm seeing that that is what this advocates is for 2 cards in play, not 1. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, now see, we have the issue with this gentleman. He's always putting books on hold for pickup at one place with his other card. Do you understand what I'm meaning? Like
Yeah,
the
and
card and the
we've
pickup
had
place
that.
don't correspond.
And we've had that issue as well, you know, because as it goes now, Carthage is not a member of the reciprocal borrowing agreement, but we are. And we've had patrons do that. And I don't know if that is a permission that Equinox needs to change for us because, you know, and it shouldn't, as of the old agreement, it shouldn't have been that way. This new agreement doesn't mention.
See, that's what I thought when you did reciprocal borrowing, they changed a setting that allowed the card, whatever card they have, whether it's mine or Lebanon, to be used at either place. So that we don't have duplicate cards.
Yes, and I think that was the issue. Some libraries didn't want another library using their card.
And Terry, just so you know that that is how it's set up. And right now there isn't a protocol to change that in the back end. So those issues are going to still go forward until we get that resolved at some point.
Okay. Because, you know, I just think the idea of us all having duplicate cards, say you're a person who has 3 systems surrounding you, you could end up with 4 cards under one person's name in the system. And that just seems kind of crazy to me. I just think I always thought this would go toward where you just use one card, but it be accepted at whatever locations you have the borrowing agreement with.
The problem with that, Terry, I think that would be great if we all had the same policies. The consortia that do that around the country typically have, like in Georgia with Georgia Pine, they all have the same policies, circulation policies. The problem is that every place the person uses that card at, different policies are, different policies are applying. So
yeah. So a good example is Carthage, you know, they've got a circulation limit of 8, I believe, and we had 12. So their patron would come over to our library and we'd scan their card. Then it would go off of our policies, you know, and let them check out 12 items. But then they'd go back to Carthage and expect to be able to check out the 8 items there. And, you know, that just doesn't work out with, you know, because then their policies would take place and say that they were over their limit.
Hey, Mickey, can you speak to how Nichols is set up? It's been a few years and I don't quite remember, but it seems like it was based off of whatever library you're checking out at the time.
That's exactly correct, Rebecca. You're exactly right. And I think this has been the discussion we've been having in the committee about how to eliminate the issue of conflicting policies. And the truth of the matter is that ultimately, as a Missouri Evergreen cardholder, for our patrons' sake, we need to eventually get to the point, even in reciprocal libraries, where there's one card. And the policies that are attached to that card, depending on where they check the materials out, are the ones that apply. And again, that's going to put the onus on the checking out library, the library that is serving the patron face-to-face at the moment, to apply their policies and explain the difference between Carthage, for example, and your library. So yeah, there are issues. There's no question about it, but it can be done. And I think Steve's concern notwithstanding, it is possible to eventually move towards a one card for all system. I think we're sort of in that in-between stage where we're trying to manage reciprocal borrowing, because remember, you have to be a signatory to the reciprocal borrowing agreement in the Missouri Evergreen, and we only have about a dozen libraries that are signatory to that. So if you aren't signatory, you don't have to accept reciprocal borrowing with anybody. If someone comes into your library and says, I've got this Missouri Evergreen card, I want services, you don't have to oblige them in any way, shape, or form, because if you're not signatory to that reciprocal policy with a specific group of libraries, you don't have to provide those services. Now, I know some libraries want to, they'd like to, and that's fine. That's up to them again to do that. We always want to serve the patron as best we can. But I think that the policy itself and the reciprocal borrowing agreement is still maturing. And I think we need to continue to look at opportunities to consolidate to one card for one person for one account.
Mention too that I did talk to Equinox about this. And I made it as simple as I could. I said, how difficult is it for us to have a patron where I have a Missouri Evergreen patron and I want them to be able to, I don't want my card to work at their library. And they said, it's pretty dang complicated. It's going to be a lot of circ paths. It's going to be a lot of behind the scene work. And I see that Andrea's here now. So, I don't know if we're going to, lay this on her lap all of a sudden, but it's a big deal.
I do have something I could say about this, which is there is a long and complicated path to do this by policy, but there is a much shorter path to do it by development. I don't know if some of you are aware, there's a feature that came out a couple of releases ago called Lassos. And what Lassos lets you do is create, you rope together groups of libraries, regardless of their organizational position, for purposes of OPAC searching. So if you want to say, have these libraries that are organizationally related, but create a Lasso so you can search all of them. What we could do development-wise is extend this functionality to interact with patrons, so that you could say, okay, this is the resource sharing Lasso. And when I scan this patron card, I'm going to check and see, are they a member of this group? And then they can do the things together with each other as part of this group, and everyone else is outside of that group. So while the policy adjustment path is long and windy, the development path, of course, is, would need to be funded, but is far more straightforward and has, there's already infrastructure in place that gets us kind of halfway there. So I would honestly recommend exploring, and not just because I'm the development manager, but this is a pretty good case for where maybe consider simple development instead of complicated policies. So I would be more than happy to come up with a proposal for you guys for that.
I'm really confused by this, because when the Sullivan Library was an independent city library by us, and we didn't want them using our cards because there was a lot of overlapping patrons. Diane Disborough, you're still on this call here? Correct me if I'm wrong on this. We called Mobius and said, can you block their cards from being used at our branches? And it was done within 5 minutes. Is that your understanding?
I don't remember.
Okay. I know that they didn't. I know we just contacted them and we said, they're allowing our patrons use your cards. We don't really want that, but we definitely don't want their patrons coming into our branches and using cards, because our policies were very different at the time. And Blake did that in the same day, and those cards were not able to be used at our libraries anymore. Sullivan cards, if someone walked in with a Sullivan card, it would just not allow them to check out. I guess I don't understand what's changed since then.
I believe the difference is you're talking about a one-to-one, 2 libraries versus a many-to-many.
Okay.
So it's much more simple to set policies between 2 libraries, that's only 2. That is a one-to-one relationship. That is 2 policies. Whereas if you've got, 10 libraries and they've all got to have different rules for each other, then that exponentially increases. So that is probably, I don't know the change that Blake did to make that, but that is my guess, that, making things do a thing between 2 entities is far, far less complicated.
Well, to Mickey's point, I would love a single consortial card. I know when we did our strategic planning survey, the majority of the members were against it, a single card. But I think it does necessitate shared policies. I know a few months ago, a committee was appointed to explore shared policies. I don't think they've even met because I'm supposed to be on it. And I don't know who was appointed chair of that. I don't know if a chair was even appointed. So I don't know where that's headed, but I just think it will be a big challenge to get like a lot of the consortia that we talked to when we were doing the strategic planning. A lot of them had, I would say majority of them had shared policies, CERC policies, and we are nowhere near that. And I don't think there's a lot of will for that among the members. I know when we joined, and since we've been a member, a huge selling point to people who are joining is you get to keep your own policies, keep your own CERC policies, and they seem to love that. So I don't know how to get past that. I would be the first person to vote on having shared system consortia-wide policies for circulation. I'd be willing to change our CERC period. I'd be willing to change, different things we do in terms of permissions and things and groups. I'd be fine with that. I think it does require some ability to be flexible on that. However, if we're not going to have that, I don't agree that a single card is feasible at this time.
Well, and under your lasso concept, if say my library and if I had Evergreen libraries, all the counties that touched me were libraries. If we could all come together and decide to have a same policies, you could just easily lasso us together as a borrowing group.
I'd have to double check with the developer, but that's the general concept. Yeah. What I was describing was lassoing patron groups. It would be a little bit more work to hang actual policies off of it, but certainly feasible. And the idea when we did the initial lasso work, we left, some threads there, some hooks there to allow for this kind of future extension into patron groups, policy groups, things like that, to do these sort of ad hoc kind of groupings.
So this would be like one of those long range things where you could get small pockets of Evergreen that libraries that could agree to change their policies and then maybe grow out from there, because then there is an advantage to want to join that little circle of libraries.
I like your thinking, Terry. I think it's future centered, and I think that is the idea, is to sort of keep the conversation alive among members so that they do see advantages to certain shared policies, and eventually we'll reach a consensus where we can do that. I think that's exactly right.
Because I agree with Steve, I would jump on that, and I just think there's a lot of people who are just so fixed, resistant to change is what it is. It's a lack of flexibility and resistance to change. Because what does it really matter often if your checkout time is different by 3 different days? It's just a matter of communication to your patrons. And does it really matter in the scheme of things? Or is it just you don't want to change?
And I think one more thing to mention too, with policy versus development, if I'm understanding correctly, every library that does this reciprocal borrowing thing, every single one of their CERC paths, their CERC policies would have to have an additional CERC policy that kind of works in tandem with that to allow or disallow libraries to do that if we wanted to do the one card thing. So I know for my library, I have over 50 CERC policies just for my library. So if we have 60 libraries that all have, even if they only had 10 CERC paths, that's crazy.
The last
And I guess I'm hung up on the multiple card thing, because we are diligently trying to clean up our patron records. And say there's 5 cards out there for the same person. Who's going to keep track of these cards in the future? Are you checking to see if they expired? Do they need deleting? Do they need removing? Are they deceased? You've got all these cards floating around, and your database is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger with no maintenance.
Well, that's already the responsibility of the library that gives the card out to manage that. We all already do that with our own cards. There's no difference to that. That's already happening now. We all purge cards when people pass away, or they're not used for X number of years, or whatever. That's already happening. We already all do that.
Are you sure?
Well, that's what I was going to say.
We should all be doing it. I mean, I can't tell other libraries what they're, or I can't tell what other libraries are doing and what they should be. I mean, I can tell them what they should be doing, but they're going to listen to me.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's still just my patron. I don't care if they have 5 other cards from other libraries. I'm just taking care of my patrons. That's my responsibility.
I'm sensing a lull. So do we have further discussion on reciprocal borrowing? Now that we've got Andrea already warmed up talking about reciprocal borrowing. If you would, Mickey, go ahead and introduce Andrea, her role and what she'll
Yeah,
be.
thank you, Ron. Yeah, we launched right into a conversation with poor Andrea without any preamble, but I just wanted an opportunity to introduce Andrea von Snyman, who is our account manager with Equinox. And Andrea and I have spent a lot of time together in the past several months, getting to know each other and to forge a really strong working relationship. I thought it would be a good opportunity for Andrea to introduce herself to membership, put a face to a name, and also invite questions if she has the time. I think that it's a good thing for you to get to know who Andrea is. She's sort of the top of the pyramid when it comes to our relationship with our vendor partner. She's the one who oversees our account in general and make sure that we are resourced by the various staff at Equinox in terms of solving our problems and getting our issues met. So welcome, Andrea.
Thank you, Mickey, and thanks everyone for having me. I do see a few familiar names and faces here, but for those who don't know me, as Mickey said, I'm your account manager with Equinox, but I'm also, my main role at Equinox is actually project manager for software development. So I oversee contract development and things like that, including the Simple Reports project that you all recently participated with, which has been merged for 3.9. So that is congratulations and thank you. You guys have together funded a really important new piece of new feature for the Evergreen community that is now going to be available for everybody in the future. So thanks for that. I, have been touching base with Vicky pretty regularly about every other week. And if you have typically your first point of contact for support questions should be our support team. But if there's concerns about other things, maybe something languishing, or if you need a new agreement for things, anything where you feel like something needs to be escalated, you can bring that, to me or Mickey, and we'll look into that for you. I'm always happy to answer any questions. Most of you know me, have my contact information via IRC or my email. I'm happy to be available to you guys however you need. So yeah. And as far as policies goes, I will say that in December, we pulled a report for Shannon of Missouri Evergreen policies, and you had somewhere in the realm of 1,050 active circulation policies across the consortium. That is a lot of policies. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have or just whatever you guys need, I'm here. And I'm sorry for it's allergy season, and I have been ridden by pollen this week. So.
Are there any questions for Andrea? Anything Equinox related? Going once. Well, thank you for taking the time to attend, Andrea. It's good to put a face with the name on an email. And, we've had some good discussion this morning about, how long we've been with Equinox and the pleasant experiences we're having working with you guys. So thank you for being here this morning.
Great. Thanks for your kind words, Ron. I appreciate that.
The next item on the agenda is report from Amigos. Kristen is here.
All right. Yeah. Hi, everyone. So the main thing that we've been working on the past couple months was updating the bank signers and getting Missouri Evergreen set up to do electronic bill pay. So that has been set up, and we have started paying vendors electronically instead of just via paper check. So that makes things a lot easier and more efficient. And just to Ron's point earlier about revenue incoming, I just wanted to remind folks that we bill Marchive at the end of the year now. So we have to wait till we get all of the Marchive invoices to Missouri Evergreen. And then once we have that total for the year, that's when we will bill it out to the members. So there will be a Marchive income coming at the end of the year. So yeah, and then just doing kind of the day-to-day processing, paying the vendors, and yeah, that's about it right now. Did anyone have any questions? I think Shannon did send out my report to the group as well.
Do we have any questions for Kristen about Amigos and the financial management of the consortium? I have to force myself to slow down and give people time to unmute themselves so they can speak if they need to, because I know I will generally keep myself muted.
You're doing a wonderful job, Ron.
I'm trying my best. This is not my strong point. Next on the agenda, Missouri State Library. Do you have anybody here? I see Janet.
Yes, and I was just looking to see if Robin made it in, but she did not. So the main thing we are working on right now is our LSTA FY23 budget. We're getting pretty close to getting that finalized. We need to get that finalized pretty close to the end of this month so we can give it to the Secretary of State for them to look over. And then in mid-May, we have a Secretary Council meeting. It's a kind of advisory committee that we give the budget to, and they approve of a budget. And what that does is that shows how much money we're going to spend on grants, like the technology grants, summer reading, to Missouri Evergreen, things like that. So right now, things are still fluid. With having the ARPA funds that came in last year, and we added BrainFuse Vet Now and teaching books using the ARPA funds, trying to figure out whether we want to use LSTA funds or real funds to pay for that and where that's going to come. We're still working that out. So as I talked with Mickey, I think earlier this week, you know, for the grant application he'll be putting in for support, and we'll just keep in communication with Mickey so he knows where we're at on that. So that's our big thing.
Any questions from the group for Janet?
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate the State Library's support of Evergreen. Next on the agenda, the report from Mala. I know Jane is not able to attend today.
Actually, Ron, I just got on.
Oh, good. You'll get the report better than I will.
Perfect timing. Sorry, I had another meeting scheduled, but it seems like it worked out perfect. Just a couple of updates. The Postal Service problem stemming from whatever happened in February is still rolling in. I appreciate all the information people are giving us. We're passing that on to Henry each and every time. If you can give us notice of like what the dates were, and if you can remember to catch where they're coming and going to, if they're coming back to you, if they never got to where they were supposed to come and they just return, that is helping them figure out. It seems to just be a placement problem in their warehouse that someone has, put something in the wrong container many times, it seems like. So we're hoping it every day. We hope it's kind of ending and then we get another report. So just keep letting us know. Only a handful of you have reported being charged for that. If you are charged and you didn't let us know, please let us know because we will refund you whatever postal fees were charged to you. The RFP update, it went out to 6 companies that do transportation across the state of Missouri. Only 2 responded with a bid. One was a 34% increase over this year, and one was 115% increase. So yeah, I saw Kate's wow face there. Yeah, that was sort of our face too. So I'm really not going to share any other information except that obviously there's going to be some major increases. We're still working on contract negotiation, but by the time we meet next, we'll have that all ironed out.
Jane, does that include our current vendor?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I'm sure our next, some of you send, or some of you come yourself to our meet and greet. I am going to just do a plug for that because it's a really nice time to just have a chat with Linda. Often I pop on 30 minutes once a month. The next one is May 11th. And it's just a chance to meet other, or if not yourselves, your other ILL people, have one of your staff members hop on, kind of hear what other people are doing around the state, different size libraries. So it's really nice. We only get, we're excited if we have 6. I think we maybe had 3 yesterday, and it's always the same. So we love seeing them, but it's really exciting when we get some new people. So hop on. It comes out in the newsletter with the link. And it's usually about the middle of the month, and it's usually on Wednesday afternoons, and it's usually at 2:30. All of that is a slightly subject to change based on Linda's schedule, but that's generally when it is. And then we've got some great webinars for May. We've got the Romance Readers Advisory, May 3rd, which is a Tuesday afternoon at 2. We've got Beth Atwater from Johnson County Library and Amy Fisher from Mid-Continent, and they both do a lot of romance readers advisory talks and things. So if you have a library customer base that loves romances, or you love romances, it would be a really good time. We have a social media and marketing for small libraries. So if you're a library that doesn't get to have a large marketing department, or you don't get to use your city's large marketing department, this is for you, because it's at Atchison, Kansas, which is a pretty small library. Kia Boyd is going to present for us on Thursday, May 12th from 10 to 11. She's going to talk about how to increase your online visibility, even if you're the person who has to do, you're the director and the cataloger, and you empty the book drop and you do everything, and you have to do all your online presence. So she's got some great tips. And finally, a timely one for some of us, library board recruitment and retentions. Robin Newell out of the Emporia State Public, or not, now I'm not sure if she's from the university or the public library. I didn't make a good enough note on my notes. Wednesday, May 18th, 10 to 11. She's going to do a lot of how do you recruit good board members, and how do you keep those good board members, and how do you have good communications with them. So I know some of our friends in the state are having some board issues once in a while, so maybe more than we even know about. So that'll be a good one. Wednesday, May 18th, 10 to 11. So often we just have a couple to report, but we're doing 3 in May. So all seem to have some good content for the Evergreen libraries. Any questions? As soon as we know more about the contracts and pricing, it'll be in our newsletter, and it'll be out soon, because we will have our invoices and stuff out probably now that this is all kind of delayed us. We like to have it out about now, but we're probably a couple weeks out. Okay, I'm glad I could hop on here. Thanks very much for having me.
Just a reminder to member libraries, unfortunately, we're all going to run into courier issues. If you need to report those, we do have a link right on the front page of the consortium website that links you right to that reporting form. Save you from going to the Googles to try to find it if you don't have it bookmarked.
And I will, I want to appreciate that, because I think since you guys have moved it to your front page, we get more of them on the form than we used to. We used to get some phone calls or emails to Linda. And if you email only Linda, if Linda happens to be off, or works only a short day, then nobody else sees it. So that's why that form is so helpful, because then Marcy and I can be looking at it all the time too. So thanks very much for doing that.
You're welcome. On other matters, one thing I skipped that I probably should have talked about during the financial report was our treasurer, Sue Lightfoot-Horing, could not be here today. She is recommending that we probably need to consider adopting a set of financial policies. That pretty much is how we're already proceeding, but it just codifies it, puts it in written form for us to refer to. So I think we will probably discuss that further at our June meeting when Sue can be here to introduce that. One last thing that I have, this is our 10th anniversary year, and we've talked about doing different things to mark that anniversary. And Shannon is asking member libraries if we can approve up to $2,500 to buy Missouri Evergreen, like she called it, swag, to mark our anniversary. Things like T-shirts or glasses, mugs, things like that. But she was asking the membership to approve up to $2,500 for that expense.
Then would those items be resold at libraries, or what are we doing with the swag?
I honestly think it might be a mixture. We had talked in exec board about coming up with T-shirts. Steve got a design put together for them and got some pricing.
Well, I didn't get a design together. I already got pricing. I just used the T-shirt company that we use. It wasn't like I went out and got quotes or something. We have a company that we use for all our T-shirts here, and we do periodically get T-shirts. The price came out to be something like $13.70 a T-shirt because it's multiple colors, plus it's back and front they were talking about getting. So it's probably, I mean, you could get them cheaper, but we get medium quality shirts. There's a range, obviously. So we kind of fall in the middle of that range. And our graphic designer is still working on some options for design work. So once I get those from her, I would send them out to the board to consider the different options and they can make a decision on that. But at least for the purposes of the budget, if everyone wants to use the company that we use, and that's a big if, that's what the budget cannot be. For 100 shirts, it was the pricing fell at, I think it was $13.70 a shirt. So of course, if you want extra large, they charge you extra for those shirts because I guess you need more materials for extra large, or maybe it was XXX. I don't know. If the bigger sizes, some of the very, very larger sizes, you need to have, it's an extra cost on that too, I think. So.
And I would think regardless of whether we're giving away the items or reselling them, we still would have to budget for that expenditure.
Sure.
Because it's not budgeted anywhere to allow the executive committee or executive board to spend that money.
This is Terry York. I'll make a motion that we allow the executive board to go forward with that for, what did you say, 2,500?
Yes.
Up to.
This is Jake from Web City. I'll second.
Yeah, there was talk about a mug, a pint glass, I guess, or something. I think Mickey you talked about, which we don't have a price on that yet, but clearly if the T-shirts are going to be $1,370 by themselves for 100, I guess the rest of that would go toward, like we said, the other swag. And one of the things that were mentioned were pint glasses. Like you see Mornet and Mobius places have done those a lot at conferences and things. So.
Any further discussion on the motion that's on the floor? If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of the motion to spend up to $2,500 in Missouri Evergreen anniversary items, please say aye.
Aye.
Hearing less and less ayes, people must be dozing off. Any opposed? All right, we'll consider the motion passed. That is the end of the printed agenda. Is there anything else that needs to be brought before the membership? We have made good time today. It's only 11:30.
You did great moving us right along, Ron.
Well, we stayed on topic pretty good this time too. That helps. I mean, sometimes we go chasing that rabbit and that's the end of it. Okay. If there's nothing else to be brought before the membership, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion. Jake, Web City.
Second.
Second.
Okay. And who provided the second?
Tony.
Okay. All right. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
All opposed, you can go ahead and stay on the call. The rest of us are probably going to get ready for lunch. Thank you all.
Have a good one, everybody.
Thanks for running the meeting, Ron.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for your help.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.